I'm sorry, Sarah, but we discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. It came out in me and I didn't know what to do.
I'm sorry. We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. That's not a suspect talking. That's not a confession. That's a doctor, a licensed physician, speaking to a 19-year-old patient who just gave birth alone in a hospital bathroom. Think of a hospital room where the IV is still dripping morphine into a teenager's arm, and the doctor standing over her bed already knows the pregnancy test came back positive, but didn't tell her. Now picture the surveillance camera. She runs to the bathroom, disappears for 20 minutes, and nobody follows. Not a nurse. Not a doctor. Nobody. That's the frame around this entire case. A 19-year-old high school cheerleader went to a New Mexico emergency room with back pain. She left facing first-degree murder charges, and the New Mexico Supreme Court just threw out what prosecutors called their most critical evidence. Because the hospital, according to the court, set her up with police. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to True Crime Court. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The paperwork already knew.
Lexi, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
On January 27, 2023 at 12:18 in the morning, Alexee Trevizo walked into a hospital in Artesia, New Mexico. She was 19 years old. She told staff she had 10 out of 10 back pain. She said she'd been at cheerleading practice earlier. She thought she was injured. Hospital staff asked if she was pregnant. She said no. She said she was on her period. That should have been a flag, because a full-term pregnancy and a menstrual cycle don't happen simultaneously. But according to court records, the hospital didn't flag it. They didn't check. They didn't examine her. They gave her anti-inflammatory drugs. They gave her a muscle relaxer. They gave her medication to prevent vomiting.
I've never seen anything like that, and I pray to God I never see it again.
Millions of people have seen this body cam already, but when this girl goes on...
At 12:28, 10 minutes after she arrived, doctors ran a pregnancy test. At 12:51, the test results came back positive. The doctor and the nurse knew she was pregnant, but nobody told her. For the next 48 minutes, the nurse continued giving Alexee IV medications, including morphine. The defense says that's not standard care. That's malpractice. The hospital gave a 19-year-old with no tolerance to narcotics a steady drip of morphine while she was in active labor and didn't tell her she was pregnant.
Goes on trial for the murder of her newborn. The 12 jurors who will decide her fate will not. The state Supreme Court of New Mexico just...
At 1:39 in the morning, Alexee said she needed to use the bathroom. Hospital surveillance shows her running to the bathroom. She was in there for nearly 20 minutes. Her mother knocked on the door. Nurses knocked. But according to court records, nobody entered. Nobody checked on her. Inside that bathroom, police say Alexee gave birth to a full-term baby boy. She didn't call for help. She didn't tell anyone. When she left the bathroom at 1:57, she walked past the nurse's station and went back to her room. The paperwork already knew.
Just tossed what might be the most critical pieces of evidence in the state's case against Alexee Trevizo.
At 2:02 in the morning, a doctor performed a pelvic exam on Alexee. She was bleeding. She was in pain. The doctor didn't say you were pregnant. You just gave birth. According to the defense, she still had no idea what had happened. At 20:27, hospital cleaning staff entered the bathroom. They found the newborn in a trash can. A clean liner had been placed over the top, something the state would later argue showed intent to conceal. The baby was pronounced dead 1 minute later at 20:28 in the morning.
Trevizo.
The doctor had set her up with the police, their words, not mine, where they ambushed her.
Alexee's lawyer.
A state autopsy later found the baby died of entrapment, meaning suffocation inside a plastic bag, and ruled the manner of death a homicide. The autopsy also found morphine in the baby's blood, the same morphine that had been pumped into Alexee's IV while she was in labor. The state's case is built on a single argument: Alexee knew she was pregnant, concealed the pregnancy, gave birth, and intentionally killed the baby. But there's a problem. The New Mexico Supreme Court just ruled that almost all of the evidence the state was relying on can't be used at trial.
Just joined us to talk about why this means everything to the defense of a girl who is charged in a horrific crime.
In August 2024, a district court judge ruled that police should never have been brought into that hospital room. The judge ruled that what Alexee said to doctors and nurses, and what she said in front of police, was protected by physician-patient confidentiality. The judge also noted that Alexee made statements without being read her Miranda rights. The state appealed. They argued that doctors are required to call law enforcement in cases like this. They argued that confidentiality was waived because Alexee's mother was in the room.
Charged with first-degree murder. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
The New Mexico Supreme Court heard arguments in November 2024, and this week they ruled. They sided with the district court. In their ruling, the Supreme Court said that once doctors notified deputies that a dead baby was found, their reporting duty was done. The physician-patient privilege still existed. And then, in a line that should stop every prosecutor in their tracks, the Supreme Court wrote this. The district court that the statement made by the defendant's own doctor that a dead baby was discovered in the bathroom was made in a highly confrontational manner and by any reasonable interpretation is shocking, confrontational, and designed to elicit a response.
The Supreme Court yesterday. Now, Alexee is still charged with the first-degree murder for what reportedly happened at a hospital in the middle of the night in January.
Let's be clear about what that means. The state's own witness, the doctor, acted as an agent of law enforcement. The doctor didn't provide medical care. The doctor interrogated. The Supreme Court rejected the state's argument that a third person in the room automatically waives confidentiality. Quote, the state's argument urges us to adopt a per se rule that whenever a third person is present who is not necessary for care or treatment while a patient communicates with their doctor, a waiver of confidentiality takes place. We reject that argument.
In January of that year, but if and when she goes on trial, prosecutors will not be able to use the statements that she made when she was...
The state's case is now eviscerated. The body camera footage, seen by millions online, cannot be shown to a jury. The hospital surveillance video, gone. Alexee's statements to doctors, to nurses, to police, inadmissible. Her attorney, Gary Mitchell, put it bluntly. It means almost everything. The right to privacy that she has, which is protected under New Mexico's Constitution, has been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court.
She was confronted by police and hospital staff after she allegedly gave birth in a bathroom and then put the baby in a trash.
But here's what the court also made clear: the hospital set her up. The Supreme Court opinion stated, in the words of her attorney, that the doctor had set her up with the police, where they ambushed her. A 19-year-old girl, heavily sedated with morphine, bleeding, having just given birth alone in a bathroom, was ambushed in her hospital room by the very people who were supposed to be treating her. The doctor who examined her, the nurse who gave her morphine, the hospital that knew she was pregnant and didn't tell her. They called the police. They invited them into her room. And then, according to the state's own filing, they delivered what prosecutors called their best evidence. The statements she made while under the influence of narcotics, without a lawyer, without her rights being read, the paperwork already knew.
In a trash can, and then went back to her room and didn't tell anyone. And inside that trash can is where state autopsy records.
But the state says they will continue to prosecute. They plan to argue that the baby was born alive, that Alexee was negligent, that she's guilty of first-degree murder. The defense disagrees. I don't believe the baby was born alive, Mitchell said. He says their experts will prove otherwise. He also says the hospital failed Alexee in ways that go beyond the criminal case, which is why they're suing the hospital for wrongful death of her baby.
Records say the baby died. Now, one of the pieces of evidence that's been tossed in this decision, this moment that was caught.
Think about what this case reveals. A young woman goes to a hospital for help. The hospital runs a pregnancy test and doesn't tell her the result. They give her morphine while she's in labor. They leave her alone in a bathroom for 20 minutes. They find a dead baby and call the police before they check on the patient. And then they use everything she said under sedation as evidence to charge her with murder. The New Mexico Supreme Court just made clear that's not how the law works in this state. But there's a larger question this case forces us to confront. How many women have been charged, convicted, based on statements made to doctors in emergency rooms under the influence of drugs without being told their rights? The Supreme Court's ruling protects physician-patient privilege. But it doesn't answer the bigger question: why was this case ever brought to trial in the first place? Why did prosecutors look at a teenager who gave birth alone in a hospital bathroom while sedated with morphine and decide this was first-degree murder?
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. It came out of me.
Her attorney has already flagged the biggest obstacle in this case: finding a jury that hasn't been influenced by what they've seen online. The body camera footage has been viewed millions of times. Social media has already tried, convicted, and sentenced Alexee. The greatest problem in this case, Mitchell said, is trying to pick a jury that hasn't been so influenced by people that didn't know what they were talking about, people that didn't have all the facts. Gossip, rumor, hearsay, speculation, guess, and conjecture based on social media. That's the modern reality of the justice system. A case can be gutted by the Supreme Court. A jury can be poisoned by the internet, and a 19-year-old girl's life can be destroyed before she ever steps into a courtroom.
Alexee, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
Alexee Trevizo is now preparing for a trial scheduled for 2027. She's been on pretrial release for nearly 2 years. She's attended school full-time. She's stayed in the location ordered by the court. She hasn't violated any condition of her release. She faced death threats. She wasn't allowed on campus. She takes care of her family. When the Supreme Court ruling came down, she was ecstatic. But her attorney says he's made her realistic. This case is far from over. The prosecution will continue. The evidence available to them is now dramatically limited, but they've said publicly they believe they can still prove their case.
It was not crying or nothing. What did you do to it?
Okay, stop right here.
Stop.
So what happens next? The court will receive a mandate from the Supreme Court, an official order to proceed. The trial judge, who has medical training as a nurse, will set a trial date. Her attorney suspects they'll be in trial sometime in 2027. The criminal case will go forward. The civil case, the hospital lawsuit, will wait. And in the meantime, the internet will continue doing what the internet does. The body camera footage will keep accumulating views. The comments will keep multiplying. The opinions will keep hardening.
Stop. Number one priority, guys. Number one priority is she just had a baby. I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly.
Yeah.
I've spoken to the obstetrician at Loveless. They want her out there as soon as possible.
But the 12 jurors who will ultimately decide Alexee Trevizo's fate won't see any of that. They won't hear her say, "I'm sorry," on body camera. They won't watch the hospital surveillance. They won't see the doctor confront her. They'll only hear what the law allows. And thanks to the New Mexico Supreme Court, that's significantly less than the prosecution wanted. The question now is this: if the state can't use her own words, can't use the video, can't use the hospital records, what's left? The state autopsy, the timeline. The fact that a baby was found dead in a bathroom, the paperwork already knew.